The small town of Ashton had always been quiet, peaceful, until the whispers began. Whispers of a killer in the night. Fear clung to the air, thick and suffocating. 3 victims, all young women, their lives brutally cut short. The newspapers called him the Night Shadow. Panic bloomed in Ashton's heart. Every shadow seemed to hide a monster. Every corner held the promise of unseen danger. People locked their doors, fear their only companion. Vladimir Kozlov, a journalist known for his relentless pursuit of truth, arrived in Ashton like a hawk drawn to carrion. The small town, nestled in the heart of the countryside, seemed an unlikely place for such dark events. Yet it was here that a series of gruesome murders had shattered the peace, leaving the residents in a state of perpetual fear. His eyes, sharp and intense, scanned the town, taking in every detail. The cobblestone streets, the old buildings, and the faces of the townspeople, all were potential clues in his quest for the truth. This was his story now, the one that would make his career. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, knowing that his words could either bring justice or leave the town in despair. He vowed to find the killer, to bring justice to Ashton. The promise was not just to himself but to the frightened people who looked to him for answers. Vlad began his investigation, interviewing locals, studying the crime scenes, and immersing himself in the case. Each conversation, each piece of evidence, brought him closer to the truth. He wrote article after article, each one a searing indictment of the killer and a beacon of hope for the terrified townspeople. His words were powerful, painting vivid pictures of the horror that had befallen Ashton and the resilience of its people. He became their voice, their champion against the darkness. Vlad's relentless pursuit of the truth gave the townspeople a glimmer of hope, a belief that justice would prevail, and that the nightmare would finally end. As Vlad delved deeper, he uncovered chilling details. The deeper he went, the more he realized that this was no ordinary case. The patterns were too intricate, the clues too deliberate. It was as if the killer was playing a twisted game, leaving breadcrumbs for Vlad to follow. Each discovery led to more questions than answers, and the shadows of doubt began to loom larger. The killer's methods were precise, almost surgical. Every cut, every wound was executed with a level of skill that suggested a professional background. It was as if the killer had a deep understanding of anatomy, making each murder not just a crime, but a macabre work of art. The precision was unnerving, and it left the investigators baffled. Each murder bore eerie similarities, a calling card of sorts. The same meticulous approach, the same signature left behind. It was clear that these were not random acts of violence but part of a larger, more sinister plan. The killer was sending a message and Vlad was determined to decipher it. But it was the killer's obsession with Vlad's articles that was most disturbing. The killer seemed to be fixated on Vlad, almost as if he was trying to communicate directly with him through these heinous acts. It was a chilling realization that made Vlad question his own safety. Notes, clipped from Vlad's articles, were found at each crime scene. These notes were not just random snippets but carefully selected passages that seemed to hold some hidden meaning. It was as if the killer was using Vlad's own words against him, turning his investigative prowess into a deadly game. The police, led by the grizzled Detective Miller, started to watch Vlad. They couldn't ignore the possibility that Vlad might be more involved than he appeared. His insights were too accurate, his predictions too precise. It was as if he had a direct line to the killer's mind. His obsession with the case, his uncanny ability to predict the killer's moves, it was all a little too perfect. The lines between hunter and hunted began to blur, and Vlad found himself under the same scrutiny he had once reserved for the killer. The pressure was mounting and the stakes were higher than ever. Doubt crept in like a creeping vine, slowly ensnaring everyone's perception of the journalist. The once clear lines of trust and suspicion became tangled, and Vlad's world began to unravel. The shadows of doubt were no longer just a metaphor, they were a reality that threatened to consume him. The tension in Ashton was palpable, a taut string threatening to snap. The killer, emboldened, left a message, a direct challenge to Vlad. The game had escalated. The police investigation intensified, focusing on Vlad. His apartment was searched, his every move scrutinized. Vlad, feeling the walls closing in, continued his pursuit, more driven than ever. But his articles took on a frantic, almost desperate tone. It was as if he was trying to outrun the truth, a truth that was about to be revealed. The end came swiftly. A raid on Vlad's apartment revealed a gruesome collection, trophies from the murders. Each item meticulously catalogued, each one a grim reminder of the lives he had taken. The police were horrified by the sheer scale of his atrocities. The evidence was irrefutable. Vladimir Kozlov, the hunter, was the Night Shadow. His meticulous record-keeping left no room for doubt. The town's worst fears had been confirmed in the most chilling way possible. The town was in shock. Their savior, their voice, was the monster they feared. The betrayal cut deep, leaving a scar that would take years to heal. People who once hailed him as a hero now felt a mix of anger, fear, and confusion. Vlad was found dead in his cell a week later. Suicide, the authorities said. But the circumstances were suspicious. How could someone so closely watched manage to take his own life? The questions began to mount. But whispers began again in the small town of Ashton. Whispers that hinted at a deeper conspiracy. Some believed that Vlad had been silenced to keep dark secrets hidden. Whispers that Vlad's death was no suicide. That someone, or something, had orchestrated his demise. Theories ranged from fellow inmates to powerful figures within the town. Whispers that maybe, just maybe, the real Night Shadow still lurked in the darkness. The fear that gripped Ashton was palpable, as the townspeople wondered if the true terror had yet to be revealed.